Nico's pick of the week was the 2022 film Pearl, aka the sequel to the 2020 film X by A24.
Prequel! It's a prequel to X!
I meant prequel, that's why I meant to say whoops.
Yeah, this is a film where we explore, the life of Pearl and her sad life on the farm where she lives under the stern eyes of her mother and catatonic father. This country girl does have to make do, though, by giving into every invasive thought that she has, by murdering her family, and tries to make it as a dancer, but in the end has to accept that she just ain't cut out for the big city.
My fun fact about Pearl... this was originally going to be in black and white, but A24 said no, so they went the opposite direction.
I'm glad they did that too, because this is a very colorful, nice to look at film for the most part, I'd say. I definitely think it'd lose a lot of its charm if it was taken out. Especially because what I was thinking of is a lot of the time when you see films that are taking place in, like eras ago, basically, especially like in the case of this in like fucking World War I time, you would expect them, a lot of the time with the color grading, they make it look a little like washed out to make you kind of like assume you're looking at something older, just because it just, connects those neurons in your brain. In this movie, I actually appreciated a lot looking so vibrant and pretty, just because it just kind of like stands out in that way.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
This part probably doesn't matter as much, but I was trying to figure out throughout the movie because I don't know why it can only be one of two things. I'm pretty sure it's just both. I was trying to figure out if Pearl was just demented and fucked up in the head, or if it really was just her family and her life fucking her up. I think it can be both.
It's probably both. I'm assuming it's just... She probably just had a screw loose, maybe just off the rip, and being isolated for so long, her fucking husband being, not even necessarily that she was like super attached to her husband, but given her her last monologue, but just like, I think it's mostly just the isolation, the restriction of what she wants to do, just kind of ate away at her over time. And you can kind of see that with the progression of the violence she took upon things.
Yeah.
I think she could have been a normal, well-adjusted person if she wasn't in such like a horrible scenario.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I do think that there's some little fucked up in her mind, but I do think she would have been in a better place at the very least.
Yeah, I think if her husband did in fact just take her and live the rich life, she probably would have just been some normal person for the most part. Maybe she'd take pleasure in fucking skinning the chicken or something, but like she's not gonna go and fucking murder people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know if in this movie if the ends justify the means at all.
I don't think they do.
I don't think they do, because it's just like it's like when you were explaining it, it's just like she gave in to pretty much every intrusive thought she ever had, which is just like a lack of like mental discipline, which is something that most people have, at least in that regard. And it's just like the fact that she was so willing to just do whatever came to mind with disregard, because like all she wanted was like things for herself. Like she just wanted to be super selfish. But I'm gonna jump right to the end, because this is like a question I was thinking. Because clearly the husband got home. Obviously the corpses were rotting. The pig was like pretty much gone because the maggots were eating away. So assuming it had been a couple months or whatever after all that happened, why did he? Because obviously he was with her in X, and like he was kind of helping her and just like allowed people around her. Why did he allow her to like allow people around knowing this? B, why didn't he just like fucking take care of it, or like just do something? And C, why the hell was like the ending credit scene so fucking weird? Like realistically you're just zoomed in on her face and she's just smiling awkwardly in silence. Like, I don't care how appalled the husband is, there's not just being silence.
Yeah, it's supposed to be creepy and fucking creepy out.
Yeah, it's very unsettling. A rather despair-filled smile, I must say.
Yeah, but it's just like, I don't get the husband's like thought process, because he obviously, I don't know why he was trying to cover for her at all. I guess if we're taking the till death do us part thing quite literally, and it was like a different era back then, maybe that's why he did it. But I can't justify him sticking around with her or doing something about her for as long as they were alive, given how old they were in X.
That's what pussy and being overseas for that long, fighting in the trenches does to a man.
Dylan does bring up a good point, and it's not even his point necessarily, but it is just the fact that it's really hard to look at this movie as just its separate piece of media. Obviously, it's a fucking prequel to X, and you have to look at it as a prequel to X, but it's hard. I want to like look at the movie as just, you know, it's this singled out piece of media. Because I appreciate it more that way. Like, I don't like knowing that the husband does in fact just continue to stay with her regardless of all the fucked up shit she's done, because that just seems stupid to me. There's ways you can justify it, obviously. We don't really know anything about the husband. But just that dumb little smiley gift just makes him look like kind of a lovable goof, you know? And he does, I just don't think a lovable goof would stay with the fucking psychopathic murderer. And that lowers it for me. And also, literally just because of the fact that this is a prequel to X, I feel like the movie limits itself a lot. Like, this could have been a more fleshed out and complete feeling story to me. Because I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the way they ended things, where it's just kind of, she does her fucking killing spree, her husband comes home, and that's just the end. I wish there was a little bit more, you know, it didn't feel like we had like a clear like resolution of the story. Obviously that, the resolution of the story is X, the next movie, but I don't like that, because I didn't like fucking X. I don't want the resolution of the story being this other generic horror movie that I didn't fucking like, because that like lowers it for me, because I enjoyed this movie. And having it end as another movie that's just generic just is a fucking major letdown to me personally.
Yeah, like, and I agree with, like, the whole, it's basically, like, with this being a prequel, it puts a cap on this movie and its potential, because, again, going back to the whole, I don't think this guy in his right mind would stay around her or with her or not do anything about her. I feel like we could be led to assuming that she cleaned up the mess and there was no evidence left over, and then slowly over time, he realized there wasn't anything quite right with her, and then by the time he realized, oh my god, my wife's a psychopathic murderer, it was kind of too late, and so he's just trying to play, like, not hide and seek game, but basically, like, the cover-up game, where he's just, like, trying to make sure she stays away from people, and whatever she does, he tries to, you know, save her, because he's been with her for so long, and he loves her. So, but I don't know. It's just, it was weird. I thought the line delivery, oddly enough, I don't know why, this is the, like, one thought I had that was, you know, probably means anything. I thought the line delivery in this movie was super strong, just because it didn't have too much else going on besides, like, you know, the horrific murders. But just, like, the power and, like, emotion behind the lines, especially given the main girl, I thought it was very well done. It gave the movie, like, a push, even when there wasn't anything going on. Like, even the part where she was like, the sister-in-law was like, oh, talk to me like I'm your husband, and then she just kind of goes on a monologue for like 10 or 15 minutes. That could have been an extremely boring part of the movie, but like, I think the lines were delivered just well enough to where it was just like, you felt the tension building up, and you're like, oh my god, this is what's gonna happen next. But yeah, I don't know.
I thought the monologue part was great. Mia Goth, fantastic performance. Generally, I'd say the cast had great performances all around. Unfortunately, I did find out that Mia Goth is in fact British, which does really hinder how much I can really give her credit, but say la vie, I suppose.
Along the lines of that, though, is the fucking mom does a really good job of being some German woman, but she's not German. She doesn't speak any German. She's learned all that shit for the movie, too. Which is really fucking cool, and just, again, yeah, I agree with you. The performance of this movie are really fucking good for the most part. It definitely felt like you're kind of like going back into that time with the way people are acting, and everyone was very convincing for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another minor thing. This is probably quite literally a minor thing. Why does Pearl have a southern twang accent when her mom and probably her dad are clearly both very heavily German? Like, she doesn't have a German accent at all. They speak to her in German. They hardly speak English to her. And she just talks back to them in some southern country twang. Like, obviously, it's in the environment, you know. But obviously, it doesn't seem like she's going out and being social because of the fucking Spanish flu or whatever going on.
I mean, we don't know what happened prior to the Spanish flu happening.
Yeah, she was probably in public school this entire time, Dylan.
I know, but you'd think, I don't know. Immersion is a hell of a drug, dude. But whatever. Minor detail.
Tanner, you have currently said nothing about this film. How'd you feel about it?
I didn't like this one for the same reasons. I have not enjoyed most A24 films.
You didn't like Midsommar?
No.
He didn't like it, but he was like, you know what? It's a good film, though. So it can go in A tier.
Like, they don't speak to me personally, but I can recognize the, like, quality in them. Except for this one, frankly.
Why is that?
The big thing that stuck out in my mind as I was, like, trying to mull over my thoughts on it is this film feels AI generated. It just feels like a fake movie to me. It's got the exact same problem I've mentioned with, like, Midsommar and, and X, where it just feels like the director and the filmmakers, like, they just graduated film school and they went through every single moment of this movie going like, okay, we're trying to evoke this emotion, and when you do that, you do this kind of shot with this kind of line delivery, and like, it just feels very mathematical the way they're approaching making the movie. And like I mentioned, these movies feel like factory art or whatever. Like, there's artistic qualities to them, but it feels like very much like, oh, when you're trying to accomplish X, you do Y. And I can't get into them for that reason.
When you try to accomplish X, you do Pearl. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's all. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't understand where you're coming from with any of that, quite frankly.
Yeah, same.
Me neither, contrarian.
Yeah, so as far as Dylan and Jackson both talked about, like, the fact that this film is a prequel limits it. I don't necessarily, like, technically, yes, that does limit the idea of the film, but this film didn't feel as though it was limited by, being a prequel, like many other films do. Like, it very much so feels as though it stands alone perfectly fine from X. Like, it wasn't trying to give you a bunch of, like, answers or, like, twists to X. They feel like this film was very much so focused on just fleshing out the character of Pearl, rather than, like, being like, oh, this explains all that other bullshit that happened fucking 40 years in the future or whatever.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Nico, and I'm not even saying that necessarily. I'm just saying the movie could have been better. It could have had a more, like, conclusive ending to me if X wasn't a thing. That's all I'm saying. Like, it could have been elevated up a lot higher to me if it didn't limit itself by having to end itself where it did and kind of, that way.
And how come in X the old woman isn't like, hey, you look just like me, like suspiciously similar?
I mean, she basically says that.
Yeah. And I also want to just clarify, I don't think that because this is a prequel, I just thought the ending is where, kind of like with Jackson, I think it's the ending is where it kind of gets all fucky. I think this movie did do a very good job at, like, filling out kind of the foundation or the bottom lines, I guess, if you want to say, because there's a lot of moments in this movie where you make that mental connection to X, where you're like, oh, hey, that's a thing that happened there. Oh, hey, this is why this is that way. Oh, she got this property because it was her parents. It fills in the blanks and it sets it up whether you've watched X before or you're going to watch X. I agree with you where this movie stands alone. You can either watch X before or after and it won't matter.
Yeah, and I think even just, like, being able to see, like, the ways in which, like, Pearl is kind of, like, mirrored by Maxine in the next movie, I feel like, just being able to see that is pretty cool, seeing how, like, they both grew up in, like, strict, sort of, like, controlling homes, but, like, Maxine left, whereas Pearl ended up staying, and, like, fucking both of them yearn to have fame, and Maxine has the X factor, whereas Pearl doesn't have it, and that's why she's able to, like, be successful or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
How did, like, law enforcement not put the pieces together on where her, like, blonde friend, I can't remember what her name is, went off to? Like, she killed the daughter of a rich family. All we know is they clearly saw her and that girl at the audition together. I think it's pretty understandable that you would assume they'd be going back to one of their places, and now she's gone. She's vanished. And also, she didn't really do that good of a job of, like, cleaning things up. You're telling me the rich family just, like, gave up or something? What happened there?
Unfortunately, Jackson, that's kind of just how things were back then. The sheriff probably rolled up and was like, hey, have you seen this little lady? And she's like, no, sir, I haven't seen him. He was like, all right, have a nice minute, ma'am. And then he left.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dude, I would have been an insane cop back then. I would have been some fucking, that one, like, really famous detective I can't think of the name of right now.
Sherlock Holmes.
Inspector Gadget.
I literally would have been fucking Sherlock Holmes up in that bitch back then.
You would have been Monk.
Dude, don't say that.
Well, alrighty, boys. Do we have much else to really say about Pearl here?
She used the same pitchfork to kill people like she did when she stabbed the guy's eye in X.
Fucking
cool.
Speaking of kills, actually, that is one point that I will knock Pearl for here. I don't feel like the kills were very good in this movie. They didn't feel very satisfying at all.
She was new! She didn't know what she was doing. She wasn't a bona fide killer yet.
But, like, the film kind of, like, tries, at the very least, I guess, to, like, be like, oh, look, this is, like, a shocking moment. Like, this person's being murdered right now. like, for the most part, they didn't feel very impactful whatsoever. I feel like with, like, you know, the last girl, Mitzi, or whatever the fuck, Pearl, like, hunting her down, just, like, stalking her down the fucking driveway or the fuck, that was really cool. I like that part, but as for everything else, it was kind of whatever.
Yeah, I'd hard disagree with you on that. I thought her fucking killing her mom was really impactful. The Mitzi kill was super cool. I'd agree with that. I think the least impactful one was just her killing the fucking dude, you know, the one just setting it.
Yeah, you know
off.
what? I feel like that's probably more apt. That's the one that stands out more in my mind as just like, yeah, fucking what was
that one
even
was dumb
happening
as
here?
shit, too. He just started his car, and she just fucking teleports in front of him with the pitchfork and stabs him. Dumb as fuck.
Yeah, I didn't like that. And to be fair, I don't really count. I mean, she was alive, but like technically, she didn't really. Did she really
all
kill
she did
her
was
mom?
burn her alive and throw her down a fucking staircase.
She didn't
and
burn
leave
her
to die.
alive. She pushed her against the fire pit, and I don't think
Yeah,
her
and it
catching
made
on
her
fire
burn
was
alive.
intentional. Yeah, but she also put out the fire though. So like, what
Yeah,
really?
with like fucking hot oil or something, and then threw her down a fucking
It was
staircase.
hot water, but like also she was clearly frantically looking for water to put out the fire. I don't think.
Yeah,
she
and
was
then she
actually...
fucking locked her up in the basement to die down there.
But she didn't die. Like she went back because like she fucking heard a knocking in the door, and her mom was like at the door. She pushed her back down the stairs, and she still wasn't dead.
I mean, she died eventually. She's still complicit in
Yeah,
this.
she died at the very end. She was like the second to last. She might have been the last death. I can't remember.
Like, Dylan, if you fucking trap Tanner in a crate and just lock him up in there and leave him to die, I feel like you're the one who killed him in that instance. Not like, well, he just, you know, didn't eat. That's on him, I guess.
I'm just trying to say, like, it's more of like it's a less impactful death than like delivering the killing blow in the moment, like she did with like the dude or like with Mitzi. It just felt like a very indirect kill. I don't really know. It's kind of dumb. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. She still killed her mom. Whatever.
I do think it's interesting, though, that she felt pretty remorseless for a lot of these kills, outside of the dad, where she seemed like she actually showed some emotion towards. And I'm
She couldn't
curious,
be mad at him because he never did anything.
I mean, he specifically is like the whole reason they're in this situation in the first place.
True.
She loved him at the end of the day,
She
though,
doesn't
man.
have disdain because he didn't yell at her like her mom did.
Perchance, because he couldn't.
Yeah, maybe she felt like he was much more passively keeping her here, whereas, like, you know, the mom was, like, a much more imposing force than he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, boys, I feel like we've talked perhaps long enough on this film. Does anyone else have any final thoughts for it? All right. Well, I enjoyed this one. I definitely did like it more than X. I think I'm going to go with a B+ for it.
God damn it, Nico. We've rated every single fucking movie the exact same this week.
Let's fucking go!
I also gave it a B+. That's what I was alluding to if you're retarded.
Yeah.
All right, before Tanner gives his contrarian rating, because I'm sure he's going to be the only one.
I didn't like this film at all. C-.
I thought this movie was... it's the same as Harry Potter. I kind of thought it was on par with X. After discussing with you guys, I think it's slightly better, but not enough to move it. I kind of want to double check. I'm going to give it a B+, and then while Tanner gives his bullshit answer, I'll let you know if that changes.
Dude, Nico, you're exactly right. I gave it a C-.
Jesus.
Holy shit. I don't think I'm going to be able to look this up fast enough. Oh, no.
Boo him, chat.
Boo! Man.
Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
I'm
My
gonna leave it
review
in-
is I contributed nothing to the conversation, and I don't like the way A24 makes movies. C-.
I'm gonna leave it in B+.
What else is... am I supposed to just ignore the fact that I watch these movies and I'm like, God, I don't like this, you know?
I mean, fair enough, but I feel like there's so much to talk about with this movie that's not just
I don't
like,
think
the
there
production
is for me,
value.
though, because I see... when I'm looking at the movie, I just see it as formulas. Like, I think these films are, like, aggressively predictable.
That's very sad. I'm very sad for you. Anyways, I put it at a B overall, the same tier as the second Harry Potter movie.
Let's go.
There we go.
They're
They're
one and the
very
same.
similar movies.